I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it. That's the bit that excites me.
There are evenings that begin as ceremony and end as something else entirely, something quieter, more electric, harder to name. When Princess Catherine crossed the threshold of Windsor Castle's gilded banqueting hall wearing a tiara that has rested on the heads of queens and carried the grief of a generation, the room seemed to hold its breath. Every camera turned, every conversation paused, and in the seconds that followed, a single fleeting expression, captured on film, replayed endlessly and debated across continents, transformed an already extraordinary evening into one of the most dissected royal moments in recent memory. So what really happened in that room? And does the story behind that glittering crown reveal something far deeper about the monarchy's hidden landscape? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear what you believe that moment truly meant. The journey to that night did not begin with jewels or state visits. It began in private behind palace walls during a chapter that tested Catherine in ways few people of her stature had ever faced publicly. In late 2023, the Princess of Wales began withdrawing from royal engagements with little explanation beyond scheduled surgery. Then, in a carefully worded announcement that shook the public with its quiet gravity, came the revelation of a cancer diagnosis and the beginning of a demanding course of preventive chemotherapy. The woman who had come to represent one of the monarchy's most stable and admired modern faces disappeared from the ceremonial stages she had long occupied. In her absence, questions spread, concern accumulated, and for millions of people who had watched her grow from a university student into one of the most photographed women on earth, the uncertainty felt profoundly personal. When she finally returned to public life, it was not through a single dramatic moment, but through careful, deliberate reappearance, a garden visit here, a thoughtful public statement there. But the moment that crystallized her comeback in the public imagination was something different entirely. Her appearance at a Windsor Castle state banquet in the summer of 2025, wearing Queen Mary's lover's knot, Tiara, paired with a gown designed by the same creative hand behind her wedding dress, landed with the force of a statement nobody needed to speak aloud. By that point, she had already confirmed her remission, but seeing her carry the weight of a historic crown again was something the public had not quite allowed themselves to anticipate. And what they witnessed was not simply a return, it was a reckoning with everything that had been missing. But what was it about that particular tiara, that specific choice on that specific night, that commanded such extraordinary attention? The answer lies not in its diamonds alone, but in the century of meaning resting beneath them. The lover's knot tiara was commissioned in 1913 by Queen Mary, who instructed the royal jewelers at Garrard to recreate a treasured design inherited from her grandmother, Princess Augusta of Hesse. So devoted was she to preserving that original piece that she dismantled parts of her own jewelry collection to fund its recreation. The result, an intricate arrangement of arched diamond frames cradling luminous hanging pearls, became one of the most architecturally striking tiaras in royal history. It passed to Queen Elizabeth II following Queen Mary's death in 1953, adding yet another chapter to its already layered legacy. Yet it was a third royal woman who would permanently transform this piece from historic heirloom into global icon. In 1981, a young Princess Diana received the lover's knot on loan following her marriage to Prince Charles. She wore it repeatedly, at foreign tours, at glittering state occasions, at evenings where the world's cameras clustered hungrily around her. Photographs of Diana beneath those arching diamonds became some of the most recognizable images of the late 20th century, binding the tiara irrevocably to her memory. It is said she found the piece physically uncomfortable, that its weight pressed into her temples and gave her headaches during long evenings. Yet she wore it anyway, with the particular grace she brought to every public burden. After her divorce in 1996 and her death the following year, the tiara retreated from view, kept quietly within the royal collection as if the institution itself needed time to come to terms with what it represented. Its re-emergence came in 2015, when Queen Elizabeth II chose to loan it to Catherine. The choice was widely noted by royal observers as carrying unmistakable symbolism, a visible thread connecting 3 generations of women who who had shaped the monarchy's modern identity. Each time Catherine has worn it since, that thread has tightened. The tuck and tiara does not simply sit upon her head. According to those who study royal semiotics, it situates her within a lineage that the public already understands emotionally before a single word of commentary is spoken. And on the evening cameras captured what would become the most debated royal moment of the year, it tightened once more, pulling together threads of history, recovery, and expectation into a single, luminous image that traveled around the world before midnight. Now consider what the cameras actually recorded that night. As guests assembled inside Windsor Castle for a glittering state banquet, the formal architecture of the occasion had already established its own visual logic. Queen Camilla, dressed in an ivory gown of quiet authority, wore the Belgian sapphire tiara, a piece originally gifted to a young royal bride in 1947, whose history stretches back through decades of quiet institutional service. The sapphires had been cherished by Queen Elizabeth II, and their presence on Camilla that evening carried the particular weight of continuity earned through long service, rather than expectation. She appeared, as she consistently does, entirely at ease within the demands of her role, composed, warm, fully present. Then Catherine entered, and something shifted. The lover's knot tiara, Diana's tiara, as many still think of it, moved through the room with her. In that single image, two women stood connected to two entirely different emotional chapters of the monarchy's evolving story, and the visual contrast between those chapters needed no commentary. It was in the seconds that followed Catherine's entrance that a brief expression on Camilla's face became the most discussed detail of the entire evening. Television footage appeared to capture something, a movement of the eyes, a flicker across the features, that commentators and viewers around the world immediately attempted to decode. The clip was replayed countless times across social media platforms, dissected frame by frame, subjected to the kind of scrutiny usually reserved for diplomatic negotiations. What that expression actually communicated remains entirely a matter of interpretation. Some viewers believe they detected quiet admiration, noting how naturally Catherine carried a tiara so closely associated with public memory and personal legacy. Others felt the moment reflected something closer to recognition, a private acknowledgement of how powerfully Diana's presence still shapes the monarchy's public identity decades after her death. A smaller number suggested the expression hinted at the complex emotional geography of the institution's inner circle, shaped by history that neither woman had created, but both had inherited. What is certain is that none of these interpretations carry official weight. The palace offered no comment, the expression was never explained, and the meaning, if any singular meaning ever existed, belongs to the woman herself. What is equally certain is why the moment resonated so deeply. The fascination was not merely about two women at a banquet. It was about what each of them represents in the institution's long, unfinished story. Camilla's path to public acceptance was neither swift nor smooth. For years, she navigated a landscape of public skepticism that would have eroded a less patient figure. Her eventual arrival at the role of Queen Consort, and later Queen, came through endurance, through the slow accumulation of public goodwill, through decades of quiet and consistent royal service. Those who watched her progress closely have noted that she never sought to claim the affection once reserved for Diana. She carved a different kind of respect, built on steadiness rather than spectacle. Catherine's story has its own distinct trajectory. She arrived in royal life with a warmth that connected immediately with the public, stepped gradually into a role of increasing prominence, and had begun to be spoken of, carefully, quietly, as one of the institution's most capable modern faces. Her health crisis in 2024 interrupted that trajectory in ways no public statement could fully convey. The woman who reappeared at state banquets in 2025 carrying that tiara was not the same woman who had last worn it before her diagnosis. She had passed through something private and transforming, and that, more than any diamond, was what the cameras were really capturing. Consider what those 2025 appearances collectively communicated. Britain had not hosted 3 state visits in a single calendar year since the late 1980s, and Catherine attended every one. The banquet honoring the French president in the summer of 2025, the occasion for the United States delegation during which she was seated near President Donald Trump, a setting that, only 18 months earlier, would have seemed beyond realistic expectation. And through each of these appearances, observers noted something that went beyond recovery. They noted confidence, a quieter, less performative confidence than the kind worn publicly before illness, a woman who had learned in the most direct possible way what truly mattered. The effect on public perception was quietly significant. In the weeks following each appearance, royal commentators began pointing to a shift in how Catherine was being discussed, less as a figure defined by the shadow of a health crisis, and more as one who had passed through that shadow and emerged on the other side differently weighted, not diminished by what she had endured, deepened by it, the kind of transformation that only becomes fully visible in retrospect, and that institutions rarely know how to anticipate, but cannot, in the long run, afford to overlook. The ballroom itself, on each of those evenings, functioned as something more than a venue. Those who study the choreography of royal occasions closely have noted that positioning and proximity within these spaces are rarely accidental. Attention within such rooms flows according to invisible hierarchies that require no announcement. It is said by those who are present and by commentators who study such events that Catherine moved through these evenings with an ease that drew conversation naturally toward her, while William remained close in a way that reinforced rather than competed with her presence. Whether such observations reflect deliberate orchestration or simply the organic logic of any charged social environment is a question that cannot be answered from the outside. What is recorded is where the cameras chose to settle, and on each of these evenings, they settled on Catherine, removed from the public gaze. Another quiet narrative was reportedly taking shape within the wider royal circle. It has been noted by those familiar with palace dynamics, sources speaking to media outlets rather than on the record, that certain figures in the extended royal family experienced a gradual shift in proximity and access during this period. Guest lists quietly rearranged, channels of communication narrowed without public explanation. In an institution where exclusion is never announced but always felt, such adjustments carry significant weight. These reports remain unconfirmed at an official level, and as always, interpretations of internal palace dynamics vary considerably depending on who is doing the interpreting.
What the cameras cannot access is the space after ceremony ends. Private accounts, relayed through media commentary, have described Catherine in quieter moments following these grand evenings. The ceremony released, the public role temporarily set aside, the weight of a historic tiara carefully removed before a mirror in an empty room. Whether such descriptions are accurate or embellished by the romantic imagination that has always surrounded royal figures remains uncertain. But the image they conjure carries its own truth, that the crown, however magnificent in public, is only borrowed. It is removed at the end of every evening, and the person who removes it is always simply a person. This is the monarchy, as it has always functioned, not only through the grandeur of its ceremonial stages, but through the quieter architecture of adjustment, patience, and endurance that holds those stages upright. King Charles III, navigating his own health pressures and the institutional pressures that surround any sovereign, has presided over a period of unusual turbulence with a composure that observers have consistently noted. The duties do not pause, the calendar does not yield, and within that relentless rhythm, the people who carry out those duties reveal themselves not in the dazzle of a single evening, but in the accumulated weight of every ordinary one. For Catherine, the tiara she wore that evening in 2025 was not a crown she had claimed. It was one she had been trusted to carry by a queen who judged her worthy of it, by a public that had watched her rise and stumble and rise again, and by the institution itself, which communicates its future intentions not through declarations, but through the jewels it places on the heads of its next generation. That the tiara had once belonged to Diana did not diminish what Catherine brought to it. If anything, observers suggested it deepened it, because what Diana represented, the warmth, the directness, the willingness to let the public see something genuinely human beneath the ceremony, was not a quality that had died with her. It was a quality the monarchy had learned, painfully and slowly, that it could not afford to lose. Whatever Camilla's expression communicated in that brief, endlessly replayed moment remains her own,
The monarchy does not explain itself in frames or seconds, but for those watching, and millions were watching, the image of two women separated by shared history, wearing jewels that carry the weight of generations, standing beneath the same crystal lights at Windsor Castle, while the world tried to read their faces, said something that no official statement ever could. It said that the monarchy is never finished, that its story is always in the middle of being written, and that the people who carry it forward do so not only through duty, but through the deeply human complexity of everything that duty contains. As always, interpretations of royal occasions vary, and all perspectives expressed here draw from publicly available media commentary and reported observation, rather than confirmed palace sources. What endures is the image itself, and the questions it continues to ask. What did you see in that moment? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to follow the story as it develops, subscribe so you never miss what comes next.